All right, straight into an alert. President Trump is set to touch down in Turkey just over an hour from now for the NATO summit, where he's going to meet with the Turkish president. Meanwhile, before gathering with world leaders.
Meanwhile, Iran's military reportedly fired at least 2 missiles at commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz yesterday.
So they're still doing the same old stuff. Lucas Tomlinson live in Turkey with the latest. Good morning, Lucas.
Well, good morning, guys. Last night on the eve of this NATO summit here in Ankara, and while Iran holds that massive multi-day state funeral for the late Ayatollah, Iran attacked more ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Here's President Trump speaking about Iran before taking off in the new Air Force One on its first international trip.
Look, we're going to win one way or the other. We're either going to make a deal or we're going to finish the job, okay? And it won't be tough to finish the job. I'd rather make a deal, because I don't want to affect 91 million people. We can knock down their bridges in 1 hour. We can knock out their energy supply, all of those big plants that they built.
One of the big questions looming over this 2-day summit: will President Trump allow Turkey back into the F-35 stealth fighter jet program? Turkey claims it has already invested $1.4 billion into it and planned to purchase 100 of the advanced 5th-generation stealth fighter jets, many we saw during the Great 250 celebrations in Washington and New York. Turkey was barred from purchasing them in 2019 when the NATO ally purchased the Russian S-400 air defense system. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has voiced strong opposition to allowing Turkey back into the F-35 program. Turkey's President Erdogan has had harsh words for Israel in recent years. Since the October 7th massacre, today Israel is currently the only country in the Middle East that operates F-35s.
Turkey is a great country, but it's governed by a man who calls openly for the annihilation of Israel. I don't think they should be given F-35s or the engines for their fighter jets, because that'll upset the power balance in the Middle East, which is ultimately guaranteed by Israeli air superiority and also by, I think, by America's posture in the Middle East.
As I mentioned off the top, last night Iran attacked commercial ships transiting southbound in the Strait of Hormuz using the channel off the coast of Oman. This is the preferred passage by the U.S. military to get commercial ships out of the Persian Gulf. Last night, an LNG tanker from Qatar was hit while making this passage, coming from the largest natural gas reservoir on Earth. Now, there are many other issues to discuss at this NATO summit, guys. Ukraine, also defense spending. President Trump has told Congress he wants to spend $1.5 trillion in defense spending next year. That's about 5% of the U.S. economy, GDP. President Trump wants other NATO allies to match that. Some already are in Eastern Europe, at least by a GDP percentage. Many in Western Europe are not spending anywhere close to that, guys.
All right. Thanks so much, Lucas. Of course, Spain, the worst offender. Right. Canada has promised to spend more. Germany is actually buying more. So this about a year and a half ago, and they're buying our equipment. Countries like France are deciding to go a different direction when it comes to buying equipment. Good luck with that. We have to pick up the production to deliver. So if they're paying, it could be a huge profit engine for us. So I think if the president's talking about accomplishments, this is going to be listed as one of his great accomplishments. Understanding that making NATO understand they have to defend themselves for the first time since the 1950s. Really, since World War II ended, they always said, well, America's got our back. And they were highly critical of us at various times. But now they're going to have to step up. And because we have definitely pulled some of our troops out of there and some of our strength has left NATO. It's intentional.
You know, I think, Kaylee, you know, the conversation has kind of shifted a little bit. You've seen these meetings between the Europeans where they're starting to have a conversation personally saying, oh, we may have to defend ourselves. Some people think that's a negative. I actually think it's a great thing that they feel like they need to put more money toward their own defense. At the end of the day, American power is going to be the gold standard. They're going to need us regardless. We saw what happened within the Iran war where we asked for the helps. Sure, they could have said that we could have used the bases, but it looks like a lot of the ships and carriers that they had weren't working anyway. So that shows you that they need our support. I'm glad they're starting to invest more into their own defense.
No doubt about it. And President Trump, during term one, he had that 2% goal. He wanted every single country to pay 2%. And now that's been moved, thanks to President Trump, a new 5% of GDP commitment, which nearly every country, I believe all 32 except Spain, signed on to. And because of President Trump taking office in 2016 to now, you've seen a $258 $1.8 billion increase in defense budgets and the amount being spent into NATO over that year period. That is President Trump. So really what the NATO allies should be saying is thank you, President Trump, for not only increasing spending, but also dealing with Iran, at least making an effort when these NATO allies sat back idly.
Keep in mind that we have $980 billion, and we're like, well, that's a lot. But in actual terms of our GDP, it's less than 5%. So that's why we got to get up to 1.5 trillion. During Reagan's time, it was at 5%, and that was during peacetime. We were coming into the end of the Cold War, but I think we got to get to 1.5 trillion. I think right now Congress is reluctant to do that. I would love to see an audit at the same time, because I get the sense we're wasting a lot of money. We have a huge problem with the weapons production.
That's the real problem.
We still have not addressed it, and I think there's a chance of two things happening. Number one, I think that there might be a situation where even Russia realizes they need to end this conflict. And the president fully realizes the Russians are losing. They have not gotten a kilometer left. The average lifespan for a person drafted today, once put into the front lines in Russia, is 10 days. And for every 6 Russians lost, 1 Ukrainian dies. And they're beginning to blow up every refinery in that country. They just hit Siberia, which is over 1,500 miles away, with rockets that they engineered, not from us. So let Ukraine, hopefully they can maybe finish the job in this summit. And I would love to see our allies surprise us by saying what they're willing to do to escort ships through the strait.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.